Most people think maximizing muscle is just about lifting heavy and eating enough protein. That's part of it. But if we stop there, we're missing one of the most powerful tools we have, the brain. Because when it comes to building muscle, it's not just about what the body does, it's about how the nervous system communicates with that body. And this is where the mind-muscle connection comes in, a concept that sounds simple on the surface. But when deeply understood and applied, it becomes a game changer. What we're really talking about here is neural control of muscles. Every time you contract a muscle, it starts with a signal from the brain. The stronger and more precise that signal, the better the activation, the more motor units you recruit, and ultimately, the more muscle fibers you stimulate for growth. It's not magic, and it's not bro science. It's hardwired physiology. Your ability to consciously engage specific muscles enhances their performance and hypertrophy over time. When you're training, whether you're doing curls, deadlifts, or squats, most people go into autopilot. They push or pull the weight, get the reps done, and move on. But there is a big difference between moving a weight and contracting a muscle. And that difference starts with attention. When you bring deliberate focus to the muscle, you're working when you direct your internal spotlight to it. You create a feedback loop between the mind and body. You begin to refine the neural pathways that link intention to execution. That's not just helpful, it's foundational if you're serious about building real, sustainable muscle. This kind of focus also has a powerful side effect. It begins to quiet the noise, the negative thoughts. The inner critic that whispers, "You're not strong enough," or "This isn't working." When you train your focus, you train your mind to be in the now, not stuck in comparison, or in judgment, or in past failures. And the beautiful thing is, this kind of presence isn't limited to the gym. It bleeds into everything else. You learn to become aware of the chatter without becoming consumed by it. That same awareness you apply to flexing your lats or activating your core can be applied to interrupting spirals of self, doubt, and negativity. One way to train this connection is to slow down your reps not just for the sake of tempo, but to feel the muscle contract. Focus on the initiation of the movement. Where do you want the tension to begin? Pause at the peak. Ask yourself, is the target muscle under control? Is it working, or is momentum doing the job? These micro questions asked consistently create a more refined relationship with your body. And with that relationship comes more control, not just over the muscle, but over the mind. Now here's where it gets deeper. The neuromuscular system isn't just about moving heavy loads, it also responds to visualization. Studies have shown that visualizing a muscle contracting can enhance activation. That means even thinking about using a muscle strengthens the neural circuits that support its use. So what happens when you combine physical movement with focused intention and visual clarity? You create a synergistic loop where your body and brain are working in unison. That loop, when trained regularly, creates precision, power, and purpose. This is especially useful when emotions come into play. Maybe you're angry, maybe you're feeling defeated, maybe you're doubting your own capability. You can take that energy and instead of letting it spiral, anchor it. Direct it into focus, into control, into intention. Use your emotional state as fuel, not to rush, not to thrash through a workout, but to become more deliberate in your practice. The brain thrives when it has a target, and the body follows that direction. When you're locked in like that, you're not just lifting, you're mastering your system. You're building muscle from the inside out. There's something powerful about watching someone train who's totally present. Not distracted, not scrolling between sets, not rushing. Just there, focused, intentional, calm, even when under load. That presence is a byproduct of mastering the mind-muscle connection, and you don't have to be a professional athlete or a neuroscientist to do this. You just have to commit to practicing awareness, to refining your attention, and to trusting that your brain is just as important as your biceps. So next time you step under the bar or wrap your hands around a dumbbell, don't just ask yourself how much you can lift. Ask yourself what you're trying to feel. What are you activating? Where are you directing your attention? Are you just doing the movement, or are you commanding it? Because the real gains, physical, mental, emotional, come when you stop moving through your body and start moving with it. When we talk about building muscle, most people focus on effort, consistency, and recovery, and those things are absolutely essential. But there's something far more fundamental that drives every one of those steps, something invisible, but incredibly powerful. That thing is dopamine, and I don't mean it in the way it's casually thrown around online like it's just the pleasure molecule. That's not quite accurate. Dopamine isn't about pleasure, it's about pursuit. It's about motivation, drive, and anticipation. It's the neurochemical that gets you moving toward a goal, and it has everything to do with whether you show up, how you push through resistance, and whether you stay on the path long enough to see real results. Most people wait to feel good before they act. They wait for inspiration, for energy, for motivation to magically appear. But that's not how your nervous system is designed to work. You don't need to wait. You can train your dopamine system, literally rewire how your brain responds to challenge, so that effort becomes its own reward. That's the unlock. That's how you stop relying on external results to validate your progress. Because if the only time you feel good is after the transformation, you'll rarely stay consistent long enough to get there. The key is learning how to subjectively attach reward to the process. When you're deep into a hard workout and your muscles are screaming and you're tempted to stop, that's the moment most people associate with suffering. But if you can shift that interpretation, if you can recognize that dopamine rises in anticipation, not just completion, you can flip the script. You begin to tell your brain, this discomfort means I'm adapting. This is the signal that growth is happening. That simple shift creates a cascade of internal rewards, and now the work itself becomes reinforcing. This applies to much more than training. Negative thoughts, self-doubt, anxiety, those aren't always things to avoid. Sometimes they're signals that you're pushing your edge, that you're moving towards something that matters. But the brain needs a reason to keep going. That's where internal dopamine becomes a tool. If you can learn to recognize challenge as a trigger for dopamine, if you can lean into the effort instead of resisting it, you can start to recondition your entire experience of stress and struggle. One of the most powerful ways to do this is through deliberate self-reward. That doesn't mean giving yourself treats or taking breaks every 5 minutes. It means pausing in the middle of difficulty, even for a moment, and saying, yes, this is it. I'm in the zone. I'm building. This is the work I signed up for. That moment of internal acknowledgement spikes dopamine, not because you finished the set or hit the PR, but because you recognize the effort. The brain doesn't need you to win, it needs you to care. What's incredible is that dopamine is not fixed. It's trainable, and the more often you link reward to effort, not outcome, the stronger your motivational circuitry becomes. This is how elite performers across every discipline stay consistent. They've trained their nervous system to light up during the grind. Not after, during. That means the hard days aren't seen as setbacks. They're seen as opportunities to reinforce resilience. Now, I want to be really clear. This isn't about pretending pain feels good. It's about knowing what pain means. It's about recognizing that when you hit that moment of doubt or discomfort, you have a window, just a few seconds, to assign meaning to that experience. Do you interpret it as suffering, or do you frame it as growth? That frame, that internal story, is everything, because it determines what neurochemicals are released, and that determines how likely you are to keep going. Another powerful practice is visualization. Before a hard session, whether it's in the gym or in life, take a moment to imagine the effort. Don't just picture the success. Picture the struggle. See yourself encountering resistance, and then see yourself pushing through it. That primes your dopamine system. It tells your brain, I'm ready for the work. I expect it to be hard, and I welcome that. When you do that, the challenge doesn't blindside you. It energizes you. This is how you start to become the kind of person who thrives under pressure, the kind who doesn't need perfect conditions to take action. The kind who doesn't collapse when results are slow, because your reward is internal, your drive is wired into the process. And that's the person who always wins in the end, not because they never feel doubt or negativity, but because they know how to move through it step by step, rep by rep, fueled by the fire they built themselves. When people hear the word stress, they almost always think of it as something negative, something to avoid, reduce, or escape from. And while chronic, unregulated stress can absolutely break the body down, there's another side to this system that most people overlook. Stress, when understood and applied correctly, is one of the most powerful stimulators for growth, both physical and psychological. The key is learning how to use it intentionally instead of being consumed by it. Your body is designed to respond to stress. In fact, it thrives on challenge, short, intense bouts of it, followed by recovery. That's literally how muscle is built. You introduce stress to the system through weight, resistance, strain, and then allow time for that system to adapt, grow, and return stronger. But the same exact mechanism applies to your nervous system. Your mind also adapts to challenge. Your resilience, your emotional stability, your ability to stay grounded under pressure. Those things are not fixed traits. They're trainable, and the training ground is stress, but here's the catch. For most people, the stress they deal with isn't deliberate. It's constant, it's chaotic, it's unmanaged, and when stress is chronic, the system starts to break down. Cortisol levels stay elevated, inflammation rises, sleep quality drops, and your ability to recover physically and emotionally starts to diminish. So the goal isn't to eliminate stress. It's to control the dose, the timing, and the recovery. When you do that, stress becomes a tool. A switch you can flip, not a flood you get lost in. Let's take a look at training. When you walk into the gym, what are you really doing? You're voluntarily putting your body under controlled stress. You're applying pressure with a purpose. That's the key, with a purpose. You're not just beating your body up for no reason. You're using stress as a signal to the body. Adapt, grow, get stronger. And because that stress is short-term and followed by rest, the body listens. It doesn't collapse. It transforms. Now take that same logic and apply it to emotional stress. You get hit with a wave of anxiety or frustration or overwhelm. Most people try to push those feelings away, suppress them, or distract themselves from them. But what if instead you recognize that stress as an opportunity? A moment to train your response. Just like your body gets stronger when you face resistance in the gym, your mind gets stronger when you stay present with emotional discomfort, without running from it, without reacting impulsively. That doesn't mean you have to enjoy the feeling. It means you learn to stay with it just long enough to send a different signal. I'm not collapsing under this. I'm expanding through it. One of the simplest and most powerful ways to regulate your response to stress is through breath. When you're under pressure, physically or mentally, your breathing pattern shifts. It becomes shallow, rapid, erratic. And here's the truth, you can't think your way out of that, but you can breathe your way out of it. A deep, deliberate exhale, longer than the inhale, tells your body you're safe. It signals the parasympathetic nervous system to take over. That's not just theory, it's hardwired biology, and it's a tool you can use anytime, anywhere. Recovery is just as important. Stress without recovery is destruction, but stress followed by recovery is adaptation. That means scheduling time for stillness, for reflection, for restoration isn't optional, it's essential. That might look like a walk in the sunlight, 5 minutes of slow breathing, a cold shower, or even a good night's sleep. The point is, you're creating space for your system to reset. Without that reset, even the best, intentioned stress becomes toxic over time. Here's the thing most people miss. Your brain doesn't know the difference between physical and psychological stress. It responds the same way. So when you're dealing with emotional pain, heartbreak, fear, or uncertainty, that's also a form of resistance training. And just like in the gym, if you lean into it with awareness and allow space for recovery, you grow. You don't just survive it, you evolve because of it. So the next time stress shows up in your life, whether it's under a barbell or in the form of a tough conversation or a wave of anxiety, pause and ask yourself, is this stress happening to me or for me? Am I drowning in it or am I using it as fuel? The answer lies in your approach, in how you breathe, how you frame the moment, and what you do right after. Stress can destroy you or build you, but when it's used with intention, it becomes one of the most powerful tools for transformation. If you want to maximize muscle and truly regulate your emotional state, you cannot ignore your circadian rhythm. Most people focus on training intensity, supplements, and meal timing, which matter, of course, but they're missing the foundation that all those things rest on, the timing systems of the body. Your circadian rhythm is not just about sleep. It's the master clock that governs hormones, recovery, alertness, focus, and even your ability to regulate your mood. When that system is aligned, everything else runs more efficiently. When it's off, it doesn't matter how hard you train, your body's ability to grow, and your mind's ability to stabilize will be compromised. Muscle doesn't grow during the workout, it grows during recovery, and the bulk of that recovery, especially the deep anabolic repair processes, happens during sleep. But not just any sleep. It has to be consistent, anchored to your internal clock. That means going to bed and waking up at roughly the same time every day, not just during the week, but on weekends too. It sounds simple, but it's profound. Consistency in sleep timing enhances deep sleep quality, which in turn boosts growth hormone release, testosterone production, and overall protein synthesis. And those are the hormones that quite literally rebuild you. But the timing of your day doesn't start at night. It starts the moment you wake up. One of the most powerful tools for setting your internal clock is getting sunlight in your eyes within the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking. That single act anchors your circadian rhythm. It increases cortisol, not the bad kind, but the natural morning spike that gives you energy and alertness, and it sets the timer for melatonin in release later that night. In other words, morning light isn't just about feeling awake. It's about preparing your brain and body for deep sleep 14 to 16 hours later. That sleep is where the real transformation happens. Now, think about how that ties into emotional resilience. When your circadian system is disrupted, when you stay up late on screens, sleep in until noon on weekends, or expose yourself to bright artificial light at midnight, you're telling your brain that it's time to be alert when it should be shutting down. And over time, that confusion shows up as anxiety, irritability, low motivation, and even depressive symptoms. Your emotional system starts misfiring not because you're broken, but because the timing mechanisms that regulate neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine are completely out of sync. Fix the timing, and you often fix the mood. And this doesn't require some massive life overhaul. It starts with small, deliberate shifts. Get outside early even if it's cloudy, take a 10-minute walk first thing, limit bright artificial light exposure at night, especially overhead lighting and screens. If you need to use them, dim them or wear blue light blockers. Shift your meals toward daylight hours, not late at night. Align your hardest workouts to your most alert hours, typically mid till late morning or early afternoon for most people. All of these behaviors feed back into your circadian rhythm and reinforce the systems that allow for muscle growth and emotional balance. There's also a lesser-known relationship between your body temperature and circadian rhythm. Your core temperature rises throughout the day and drops before sleep. That drop is a powerful signal for the onset of deep rest. If you train late at night, eat a big meal close to bedtime, or take a hot shower right before laying down, you can disrupt that natural cooling process. That doesn't mean you have to stop evening training altogether, but it does mean you need to cool your body down after. A cold rinse, light post-workout meal, or simple breath work can help ease the transition into rest mode. Here's what's beautiful about this system. It works silently in the background. You don't have to obsess over every detail. You just have to respect the timing, because when your circadian rhythm is working for you, it's like shifting into a higher gear. Your hormones are more responsive, your mood is more stable, your workouts feel more productive, and the voice in your head that normally spirals in negative self-talk, it quiets down, not because you've become someone different, but because your system is finally aligned with what it was designed to do. So if you've been training hard, eating right, and still not seeing the gains or feeling the clarity you want, look at your rhythm. Look at how you're starting and ending each day, align that, and the rest starts to fall into place. Because nothing builds muscle or regulates the mind more efficiently than a body that's in rhythm with itself. When people walk into the gym, they often carry more than just their water bottles and headphones. They bring their doubts, frustrations, fears, entire emotional landscapes tucked inside their bodies. And for many, the instinct is to push those feelings away, to train around them, to treat the gym as an escape. But what if we shifted that mindset? What if we saw training not as a way to run from emotion, but as a way to move through it? Because the truth is, your emotional state doesn't need to be silenced in order to perform. It can be harnessed. It can become part of the fuel. Every rep, every set, every drop of sweat is an opportunity to process what you're feeling. Whether it's anger, sadness, insecurity, or doubt, those emotions are not distractions. They are raw energy. And if you know how to channel that energy through movement, you don't just build physical strength. You start transmuting emotional pain into power. Training becomes therapy, not in a metaphorical sense, but in a biological one. Movement literally shifts the chemical state of your brain. When you engage in resistance training, your body releases endorphins, dopamine, and serotonin, molecules that regulate your mood, elevate your mental clarity, and restore your emotional balance. There's something primal about this process. When you're under load and your muscles start to tremble, you're forced into presence. The mind can't wander when the weight is real. It demands everything, and in that moment, something else happens. The thoughts that were swirling around your head all day begin to quiet. That internal dialogue of "I'm not good enough" or "this is too much" gets replaced by something simpler: breath, tension, effort. You stop ruminating and start being. This is not about distraction. It's about embodiment. You begin to inhabit your body fully, and that's where real emotional healing begins. It's important to understand that emotions live in the body. They're not just in your head. When you're anxious, your chest tightens. When you're angry, your jaw clenches. When you're sad, your posture collapses. These aren't coincidences, they're somatic responses. So when you train and you deliberately engage those areas, open the chest, lengthen the spine, drive energy through the legs, you're not just working muscles. You're rewriting patterns. You're telling your nervous system, we are safe, we are strong, we can move through this. Training with emotion is not about being reckless. It's not about slamming weights out of rage or forcing reps out of desperation. It's about awareness. It's about noticing what's rising inside you and letting that inform your focus. Maybe today your mind is clouded with self-doubt. Instead of stuffing it down, acknowledge it, and then channel it. Direct that energy into control, into precision, into presence. Let the lift become the conversation between you and the thing you're facing. It doesn't need to be loud. It needs to be real. And on the days when your emotional state feels heavy, when you'd rather stay under the covers than step under the bar, that's when it matters most. Because that resistance you feel in your mind is mirrored in your body. And every time you choose to move anyway, to show up despite the noise, you're teaching your nervous system that discomfort is not a stop sign. It's a signal to engage, a signal to lean in. This is how you build resilience, not by avoiding the hard feelings, but by integrating them into the process. By saying, yes, I'm hurting, yes, I'm unsure, and I'm still moving. That kind of internal honesty creates a deeper kind of strength, one that goes beyond appearance, one that holds its shape under pressure, and as you keep doing this day after day, rep after rep, something shifts. You stop seeing emotion as an obstacle to training and start seeing training as a vessel for transformation. The fear that once paralyzed you, you've lifted through it. The sadness that once drained you, you've pushed against it. The anger that used to make you implode, you've redirected it, refined it, turned it into effort. You haven't ignored your emotions. You've metabolized them, and in the process, you've become someone who doesn't just carry weight, but someone who knows how to carry themselves. So don't train around emotion. Don't try to wait until you feel perfect before you move. Train through it. Because every emotion you face under load makes you stronger, not just in body, but in presence, in awareness, in power. We tend to think of growth as something that happens in the gym, under the weight, through the grind, during the moments we push ourselves to the limit. But the truth is, growth doesn't happen during stress. It happens after. And what determines whether that growth takes root isn't just how hard you work, but how well you recover. If you want to build real muscle, regulate your emotions, and expand your capacity to handle life's challenges, you need to master the art of the reset. Not just rest reset, because recovery isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing the right things to bring your nervous system back into balance and allow the system, body and mind to rebuild. Every time you lift heavy, every time you face emotional pressure, your body enters a state of sympathetic activation. That's the high alert mode, the system built for survival. It raises heart rate, blood pressure, cortisol. And it's essential for performance. But staying in that state too long without coming down is like revving an engine without ever letting it cool. Eventually, the system breaks down, and that's when you start to see stalled progress, nagging injuries, mental fog, mood swings, and even burnout. So recovery isn't just about avoiding those outcomes, it's about unlocking the next level of adaptation. It's where the real transformation is consolidated. One of the most effective ways to guide your nervous system back into balance is through cold exposure. It's simple, accessible, and powerful. A cold shower, an ice bath, even stepping outside in cold weather for a few minutes without bundling up, these moments of deliberate discomfort trigger a short-term stress response, but they also train your system to return to baseline faster. It's not about suffering, it's about control. You learn how to stay calm under shock, breathe through the discomfort, and exit the experience feeling more grounded. And if you repeat it consistently, you build a body that adapts faster and a mind that doesn't panic in the face of intensity. Heat works too differently, but with equal value. Time in a sauna after training doesn't just promote blood flow and reduce muscle soreness, it increases growth hormone, supports cardiovascular health, and creates a meditative space where the body can downshift, and it's not just the physical effect that matters. It's what happens mentally when you allow yourself to be still, to sweat, to just be. In that space, your mind processes what it's been holding, thoughts slow down, clarity returns. You start to hear your own inner voice again, not the anxious noise of the outside world, but the deeper signal underneath it all. Then there's breath work. Most people underestimate it because it's invisible, but breath is the remote control for your nervous system. The fastest way to shift out of stress and into recovery is through the exhale. Slow, extended exhales signal safety. They bring the heart rate down, quiet the mind, and allow the body to start repairing itself. And the beauty of breath is that you can access it anytime before sleep, after a workout, in the middle of a tough day. You don't need equipment or space. You just need awareness and intention. Recovery also means boundaries. You can't keep pouring energy into everything and expect to rebuild. That means setting limits on your screen time, saying no when you're depleted, and protecting the rituals that bring you back to center. That could be a walk without your phone, journaling in silence, stretching with no agenda, or simply sitting with your eyes closed for 5 minutes. These are not luxuries, they're tools. Tools that recalibrate your system so that when it's time to go again, you're actually ready. And let's talk about mental clutter. Most people carry it like a second skin, an endless scroll of thoughts, worries, comparisons. But recovery rituals give you space to clear that noise. When your body slows down, your mind follows. And in that quiet, you start to notice what matters and what doesn't. You begin to see how much of what drains you is self-created. Not because you're weak, but because you haven't given yourself the time or tools to reset. This is what separates those who burn out from those who break through. It's not just who can train the hardest, it's who can recover the deepest, who can rise and fall with rhythm, who understands that strength isn't constant tension, it's the ability to return to center after being pushed off balance. That's what recovery is, a return, a reconnection with your body, your breath, your focus. So if you want to grow, truly grow, don't just chase effort. Chase recovery, chase the reset, because every time you deliberately bring yourself back to baseline, you're telling your system, we're not just surviving this, we're adapting to it.